Welcome back to another episode of DB Sports with myself, Joel. I have a special guest today.
Miguel Contreras, happy to be here, man.
All right, Miguel, you're a legend in Bakersfield, man. I don't know if you know that. How does that make you feel? A lot of people actually look up to you here.
I mean, it's definitely humbling. I mean, to this day, I mean, don't get me wrong. You see the ESPN and stuff like that, but it's just surreal. You know, it's surreal. And when people stop me for pictures and stuff like that, it's like, me? You want a picture with me? You know, it's a surreal feeling. You know, but I'm extremely blessed and yeah, just for every opportunity that I've had and just to be called, you know, something held in that standard, you know, is an honor.
Do you still remember the first time someone ever came up to you and wanted like a picture, an autograph?
I mean, I wouldn't say I remember the exact first time, but I definitely remember the first few times it happened, you know, like when my name started to get out there a little more, I would say, which was probably after my fight at the Rabobank. And that was like before I even got signed, but it was a big event here in Bakersfield and kind of got my name out there and the local news was here. So a lot of Bakersfield knew about it. And a couple of times I got stopped at the mall or something like that. Like, hey, can I get a picture with you? And it was like, me? You know, I thought they were talking about somebody else. But yeah, definitely, it's always an honor and humbling that somebody would want a picture with me.
What got you into boxing?
You know, I wish I had some crazy story. You know, people often ask me that, but I was born and raised in a family of fighters, but that's not the case. My mom signed us up at the Police Activities League here as an after-school program. And it was more so just because we need somebody to watch us while she was at work. You know, at the time I had a broken home, so my pops wasn't really there at the time. And she said, why not sign him up for PAL? And I had no idea about the whole boxing program. I remember my first day walking in. I was a little fat kid, 8 years old. And I seen the gym in the window right there. And I was like, man, what is that? That looks cool. And I'd never seen boxing, you know. So I remember I was like, I want to do that. Like, I don't know. I want to do that. And so the next Monday I started with the great Mike Dallas. And
so you were at the beginning days, Mike?
Yeah. So my first years, man, you're making me feel old, see? My first year, I think it was like 05, 06. And he was still coaching here at the time. The beginner's coach was Coach D and Pooh at the time. And that's why it's a trip, you know, seeing Coach D now. Like, man, this dude literally taught me what a 1-2 is, you know? Like,
that's the man that taught me right there.
Yeah, so
that's the man.
Just to see things go full circle, you know. But yeah, so it was just more so it looked cool, you know, and it was different. It wasn't basketball, it wasn't football, it was boxing. So that next Monday I started, and I guess I stuck with it for a long time.
How long did it take until Coach D and Mike put you sparring?
I would say maybe like a month or two in. I remember I sparred this kid. I remember his name was Moses.
Oh, okay.
First time I ever sparred, and he was been there longer than me, and he had more experience. But you know, it's always a case-to-case basis as far as kids progress at certain levels and stuff. And I had sparred, and I just remember I enjoyed it. You know, I liked it. I liked going in there and fighting, and I did really well against the kid, and that was my first time sparring, 8 years old.
When you look back now, how was it training with Mike and Coach D and Poole?
Oh man, I mean,
because to me, I've looked at the history, Coach D teaching me. I got to see Mike a little bit towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
I've always felt they're one of the two best right there. Coach D being very underrated.
Yeah, no, definitely, man, spot on. I think you know, this whole PAL boxing program was Mike Dallas is the foundation, you know, and it was built from him, and he established everything here. And I was, you know, witnessed him make some great fighters, you know, and not just a coaching aspect, but he was like a neighborhood role model, you know, and he definitely steered kids off the streets. And a lot of these kids from the hood like us, we looked at the PAL as the escape away from the streets, you know. So Mike was always there to open the door. And when it comes to Mike Dallas, Coach D, and Pooh, man, it's just, you know, you mentioned I'm a man of faith, and the scriptures say, "Do not despise small beginnings." And I can never forget those first few years in this gym, and the knowledge and wisdom that these guys have. And to this day, I mean, Mike Dallas is probably the best coach to come out of here. You know,
would you say he's the best?
Coaching wise, in my years, yes, I would. You know, and results speak for themselves. Now, obviously, Daniel took over my career, and later on in life, you know, Mike ended up passing, rest in peace, and I progressed at another level, and I'm gonna say, you know, since then, Daniel's been the closest thing to that, you know. Yeah, but we can get into that later.
Since you speak of, you know, you're a man of faith. When you were first getting into being a man of faith and doing boxing, did you struggle with it? I've always wondered that people who do boxing or MMA and they're a man of faith, how do they react to it or how do they feel about it?
I mean, you know, that's funny you mentioned that because I thought of I was watching this podcast. Well, this YouTuber I watch is a Christian guy, and somebody had asked, "Is boxing a sin?"
Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered how the people see that.
The guy responded, "Only if you're not good at it."
yeah.
Which, you know, it's all in the name of sport. You know, obviously when you get in the ring, there's bad intentions and stuff like that, but it's in the name of sport. You know, it's the sport you do, and people may not want to admit this, but I've read the Bible cover to cover several times, and it's one of the most violent books you could read, you know? And if you read through the Psalms, King David, he was a man of war. You know, a lot of times before my fights, I was reading through, there were certain verses I would read in Psalms that, like, I would read before a fight that King David wrote before going to war, before going to battle. And it's just a reality in which we live in as far as, he was going to war, but this was a sport I competed in. And I just pray that no matter what I did, it glorified God in the process, and he took me to amazing places with the sport of boxing. And I know it was all him because, I mean, not to ramble on, but I remember I gave my life to the Lord in 2019. I was 21 years old, which most 21-year-olds ain't giving their life to the Lord.
No, not at all.
And the year after is when the pandemic took off. I beat Rolando Vargas in the bubble, and then I got signed to my management. And I don't think it was a coincidence that all of a sudden I gave my life to Christ and my career took off.
Yeah, it took off.
After that, like, every fight was on ESPN or DAZN, and I started finally seeing some money for getting punched in the face, you know. And I know that it wouldn't have happened without the Lord, you know.
It's always through the Lord.
I just know that through his sovereignty and through his providence, he was able to open up doors that I never thought. I always pictured and imagined, but it's just I didn't really quite think it was possible, and the Lord did it.
Nah, man, I've always said you and Mike, Billy, you guys are in Paul Munoz are going to be guys to show us. To show the kids, really, you guys can make it because you and Mike both came out of this Power Center. Yeah. Like that.
Yeah, man, and I mean, not to frown neighborhood or any kids from any other part of Bakersfield or anything like that, but the best fighters are from the hood, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to just be honest. Like, I coming through from the amateurs since I was a boy up until now, like, the best fighters are from the hood, you know, and being from when Daniel was coaching here and when we were amateurs, like, we were all just a bunch of baby kids, like, from around the neighborhood, and parents would drop us off. You know, I clown Daniel now. I mess around with him, and I'm like, man, Daniel, you got soft. You know, you got soft. But he has a valid point that back then, all our parents just dropped us off here. Nowadays, there's so many parents standing around watching the kids train. I'm like, my parents never stood just to watch me train. Like, ain't nothing to watch, you know? So, like, back then, if you know, a kid got out of line, Daniel will put him in line, you know? Like, so now Daniel can't really act like that or be like that, which Daniel has, you know, matured a lot and became professional because he's had to, you know.
And throughout time, hopefully you mature.
Yeah.
He has done a lot.
Exactly, you know. So he's had to be a professional, you know, and that's what he learned. And mind you, like, me growing up, like, I didn't realize until, honestly, up until recently that Daniel was growing up too, you know. He was a young man coach. Doing it, a young coach running a team that was full of a bunch of ghetto kids. And I think about it now, like, I think it was because of that, though, I have so many memories, you know? Like, we have so many memories at amateur tournaments, the fact that we were a bunch of baby kids and my coach had a little bit of kid in him too, you know? Like, he was the one tagging along with us, like, hey, I dare you to, you know, like one of us, you know? So that definitely made the experience so much funner. And I've always said it to this day, you know, boxing is one of those sports where it's not fun, so you need to find the joy in it, you know? And Daniel was able to bring joy out of the sport for us as a team, you know, being a bunch of baby kids, seeing how grueling this sport is. Like, Daniel made the sport fun. And that makes the biggest difference in this sport when it comes to a coach. Being able to make this demanding sport fun makes a world of a difference.
Because it's not an easy sport at all. It's very, very hard. You have to sacrifice a lot of stuff, especially when you're young.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, I mean, you think of the little things, like obviously you got to watch what you eat, you got to cut weight, stuff like that, and then you got to be at the gym and stuff like that. But I mean, from missing out on family events and being able to not attend certain things because you have to go to a fight or you don't even want to be in a certain party environment because you know the temptation of food is going to be there, and you know you don't want to fight the temptation. And man, I remember nights in the amateurs, I would like go to sleep sucking on grapes, or I would go to sleep sucking on ice cubes just because like I was so dehydrated just to make weight, you know. And there's just a lot of sacrifice that goes into it, and a lot of people don't see that side of boxing. You know, they see the get in the ring fight, but I mean that's probably 10% of it, you know, and the rest of it is the training, making weight, and stuff like that. So definitely, it's the most physically demanding sport in the world, man.
When you look back at your amateur careers, what is one of the most memorable moments you've had?
Man, bro,
'cause you had what 80 something fights?
Probably like.
Did you reach 100?
Nah. Maybe like 70s. 70 something. I had like 7 losses. But honestly, bro, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, amateurs was dope. Like, what I miss most about amateurs, though, is like the trips, you know, with the team and stuff like that. That's what I miss the most about amateurs. But I'll never forget, I heard Sam Contreras say this, and I never forgot it because it is so true. The amateur boxing and pro boxing are 2 different sports, you know? Like, I swear, like, I was a way better pro than I was an amateur, you know, just because in the pros, you have more time. You could take your time, 3-minute rounds, and obviously tinier gloves. You think more, you know, and amateurs so up-tempo, up-pace and stuff like that. And, but, yeah, as far as amateurs go, like, I think the thing I just remember the most is just going on trips and just saying
those fun times.
Yeah, doing some of the stupid stuff.
Okay, I've heard. I know a lot of you guys former teammates back then in those Daniel, Derek days. You gotta tell me a story, man. You have to tell me a story. One that won't get nobody in trouble though. 'Cause I've heard some of these stories. I want you to tell me one if nobody gets in trouble.
Dang,
if Derek gets in trouble, that's fine. Who cares about Derek?
Man, that's the hard part right there. Just finding one that
Because I remember I've seen the videos of the tasers. I've seen the videos of the tasers.
Finding one that wouldn't get us in trouble. That's a good one. I mean, there's a few like that are, I guess, G-rated, but I remember, not to throw one of the bus, man, but
throw Derek. Who cares? Derek.
No, it's not Derek. It's not Derek, but he's doing big things now. There's a fighter, right?
Yeah. You know what to say. If you don't want to say name, it's fine.
There's a fighter. He's doing big things now, right? Big things, and I mean, I got love for the kid to this day, you know, seeing him do good things in the pros and stuff like that. But anyways, one time we were at a tournament in, I think it was Junior Golden Gloves in Mesquite, Nevada. And I remember it was me and I think it was Cheddar, and we were sleeping in a hotel room. And then that kid was on the other side, and he was awake, like on his like iPad or something like that. And there was another kid right there too. Oh no, it was the kid's brother. It was the kid's brother that was next to him. And I remember I was awake, but like they thought I was asleep, and I could hear them because they were like, "Oh no, that fool's asleep," you know. And so I'm like in my head, I'm like, they think I'm asleep, and it's kind of dark out. I mean, in the room, and I can only see because they're on their iPads or whatever. So me messing around, like I'm just like they think I'm asleep, so I'll grab something and I'll throw it, and then I'll just go back to sleep like any time. And I did it once, and then they like, "What was that?" And then they tripped out, and they're like, "Oh, whatever." And then I did it again. They started like tripping out again. Like, did you hear that? And like, I go back to sleep. Then I did it for the 3rd time, and it was like, man, my fault, bro. You getting me in my bag, bro.
Man, I've heard a lot of you guys' stories. You guys had a good time back in those days.
Yo, and it was like the 3rd time I threw something big, and it got loud, and they were like, "Nah," they got up and stuff like that. They were like, "Nah, bro, like there's something in the room and stuff like that." And they're like, "Miguel's asleep," and I'm just right there like trying so hard to fake sleep and not give off my laugh. And they ended up leaving the room to go call Daniel. They're like, "Nah, fool, let's go call Daniel. These fools are asleep." So they went to go call Daniel, and as soon as they left, I was like, "Oh damn!" And I don't know why. And mind you, I'm like my boy Cheddar's. I think he's sleeping at the time. And he doesn't know that I'm having all types of fun with these dudes. And I was like, "Oh, I know what I'm going to do." And so they leave. And you know, at every hotel room, there's a Bible.
Yeah.
So I go and I lay the Bible down at the front door, and I open it right there. And then I go back to the bed. And Daniel's like downstairs, like buzzed, gambling and stuff like that. And so he comes back up, and I'm like back in bed already, and I left the Bible there. And Daniel walks in, I sure, what the F, you know, and like he's looking at the Bible, and then he tells like the kid, I'm say his name. He told the kid and his brother, "Did you guys leave this here?" And then he was like, they were like, no, bro, I'm telling you, there's something wrong with this room, and I'm just trying so hard not to start laughing, bro. Anyways, they ended up going to sleep and stuff like that. And I remember the next day, they still don't know. They were like, nah, bro, last night something was like tripping out and stuff like that. And eventually I came clean, I was messing around and stuff like that. But I remember my boy Gato, shout out Evan Sanchez, my boy Gato from Sanger, Omar's son. He had came to the room and he goes to the restroom. We had told him the story about what had happened, about like, oh, we scared the hell out of this kid, this and that. And he goes to the restroom and he write, like when you write in the mirror with your finger, it won't show up until fog comes. So he wrote, and I didn't know at the time, but he wrote "You're next" on the mirror, but we couldn't tell because it's just his finger, And then the kid that we scared last night, he ends up taking a shower, and like kind of like a steamy shower, and like we're chilling, and the kid Gato left already, and he was laughing, and he had whispered to me like, "Hey, bro, watch, like keep an eye out for whoever takes a shower." I was like, "All right, whatever." And so I just remember like the kid comes out with a little towel. He goes, stop playing. And we're like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, no, like you guys play too much. Who did that? And we're like, what are you talking about, bro? And then we go into the shower, the restroom, and he has a little towel on. It says all fogged up, and there it says, "You're next." Oh, bro, it was so hilarious, bro. And then my boy Gato, we were like, dang, bro, he's a fool, man. But just like stupid memories like that, bro, I'll never forget, man. It was hilarious.
Nice. I've heard a lot of you guys' stories.
Yeah, bro. And mind you, like, we are trying to keep it G-rated. But at the same time, like, there's so many stories, bro. But it's just like, that's what I miss the most about the amateurs, bro. Like, growing up at the Powell Center. And mind you, we're all baby kids. So, like, this is the only time we really get to travel, So, like, us traveling outside of the east side, but let alone Bakersfield, like, man, we're having all types of fun. And it was on Pal's dime. Like, we get to eat.
None of you had to pay for nothing.
Yeah, bro. So it was quite the experience. But that's another reason why I'm forever indebted to the Pal Center, indebted to boxing, because, bro, if it was not for boxing, to this day, I would have never been on an airplane. The only times I've been on airplanes was because boxing took me there.
Or a lot of the cities you've been to.
Yeah, exactly. Traveling in general, and then that, obviously, besides the point, it's like, getting to know people, meeting these people is like, God damn, like it's just, man, show gratitude, show gratitude.
When you look back and, your team once upon a time was you, Chetta, Derek, Stevie, Joel, and who else? Is there anybody else? Because you guys are the top 5 right there.
Man, one time we had a stacked team. It was them. It was
would that be the most stacked team in history in Bakersfield?
With them, and then we had a kid named Ephraim. I don't know if you know Ephraim Vasquez.
Was he softball?
No. He was just a straight brawler. Ephraim was cold, and then we had another kid named Ephraim was like a neighborhood kid too. And then Anton. You know Anton, right?
Yeah.
Anton was cold, bro. Anton was nice, man. Like first 10 fights, he had like 9 knockouts. Like he was nice. And Daniel had his little kid, Ivan Razzo, I think his name was, and he was cold amateur too, like beating Robert Garcia's fighters, like just nice. And bro, we had a squad.
You think that was the best thing that came out of Bakersfield?
I'm not gonna like disrespect any other team by saying that, but
that's a stacked team right there.
Yeah, it was stacked, bro. And honestly, like we won a lot,
Like, the other ones I named all went pro.
Yeah. Yeah, and bro, like honestly, like we did get results, we did win a lot, but I know Mike Dallas has some stacked teams, like, and same thing, bro, like a bunch of baby kids, all around here when it was like Dallas Junior, Pooh, and Charles, like there's some cold fighters, Catania, like there were some cold fighters, like they had a squad too, so definitely they were the foundation, and they definitely had a squad.
If you had to look back, well, how would you look back on your time with Daniel?
Dang, bro, Daniel took over my career, bro, and just from amateurs to pros, bro. Like nobody could say they trained me outside of him.
Yeah.
whoever claims they did and stuff like that. It's just I am here to say that Daniel's been my only trainer.
Yeah.
You know, Daniel is the only one in Bakersfield that could say, there might be.
We'll coach you a little bit, but
Yeah,
it's been mostly Daniel.
Yeah, and so like so I've worked with coaches and stuff, but I'm saying to start a fighter from amateurs and take them all the way to ESPN. I'm trying to think of a coach that could say that, you know, and obviously Mike Dallas with Dallas Jr. He could say that, and that's the foundation of it all. But it's very couple people can say they got a fighter from scratch, from the amateurs to the pros, and took him to ESPN and got him signed. And Daniel can say that, you know, and that's why to me he's the best coach in Bakersfield.
Me and Derek have said this many times. We feel when his career is over, we all have all respect. We say Mike is the greatest. I'm biased to Coach G, so he's always for me because he's the man that taught me.
Yeah,
to this day still teaches me, is the greatest.
Yeah.
But I've always said, me and Derek, it's when his career is over because of what he's done when he had you guys, to what he has now with his son, and Finita and all of them. That he's probably going to go to be the most accomplished coach in town. All respects to Jose, Munoz back then, and all the guys we've had here, Joe. I think that he's done. I think he'll probably be one of the most accomplished coaches in history of Bakersfield.
And I think the thing with Daniel is like his work transcends, you know. So like throughout him training me, Daniel has always had a successful team. Always. He's never had a team where they just lost. I remember recently, not that long ago, they went to some fights and they didn't get a win. A few people fought and they didn't get a win. And he was like, dang, bro, like
it's weird to him.
Yeah, he didn't remember the last time he went to a fight and didn't get a win, you know? And not a lot of coaches could say that, you know, just used to success all the time and used to prosperity when it comes to the sport of boxing. And he's one of the few that can. And he's always consistently had a good team. The thing with Daniel is...
That's not easy. It's not easy in Bakersfield.
Definitely. Yeah. So to be able to say that and to be able to say I've never really held on to a losing squad, you know, and if they did lose, he fixed something to make them win. He could say that, you know. And so, like you said, we're going to have our own bias and stuff like that because he was my coach and stuff like that. But, I'm always point people that way to him.
Yeah, I've always give him his credit because what he's done. Yeah. Some people might like him, might not like him, but look at the history what he's done. It's arguably he's going to be one of the best if it continues. Yeah. If he continues with it, if he wants to continue with it.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I mean, look at his team now. Like, man, they're out, and I think Oxnard fighting at a tournament, and it's like and that's another thing. Like he'll keep his team busy. You know, like you got some guys who will coach a team and they won't take them out to go fight. Like
they would only do the little smaller local ones.
Yeah, a small show or something like that, which is fine. But like at the end of the day, like there's fighters that don't even compete in the amateur shows. They only go to tournaments, you know, because tournaments are what really counts, you know. And that's what you get the nice belts, and that's what all the kids want. You know, they want those nice belts. Trophies and medals are nice, but hey, all the kids want belts, you know. And so Daniel will keep his team. I remember during the pandemic, he took his team all the way to Mexico to get in a tournament, you know, like just to keep them busy, you know. And that's another credit to him.
What's one advice you would give to amateurs?
Amateurs?
Yeah.
Just fight as much as you can, you know, and do not. I'm not gonna say don't care about the losses, but basically, because your amateur career it can, but it is a lot of times has no say in your pro career. You know, like there's good amateurs who sucked as pros. There's bad amateurs who were good pros.
Terrence Crawford's one good example. He was a good amateur, but not one of the high level ones.
Exactly. You know, it's like you have guys who are like okay amateurs, and then they'll turn out to be stellar pros. You'll have guys that in the amateurs, this guy beat them, but in the pros, they're two different scopes. Like the guy that lost to this amateur, they're on like, you know, like the guy that beat Mayweather in the Olympics, you know, like working at a bakery, you know, and look at Mayweather. Like it's just they're two different sports. So if I had to give amateur advice, just fight as much as possible, and remember the losses are going to come with it. You know, Mayweather lost to amateurs, so in the amateurs you're going to lose eventually. You know, and so just stack as much fights as you can, because I would say the goal in amateurs is to get signed right out of amateurs. If you could get that, because in the pros, having a promoter behind you means the world. Like it means the world. Like boxing, and I learned this when I turned pro. Like before anything, like anything else, it is a business. You know, it is a business, and I've seen the ugly side of it. I've seen the business side of it, and it's unfortunate because unfortunately, a lot of times fights aren't necessarily fair because
Yeah.
there is an A side, B side, but that's the reality of the situation, and that's the perks you get of being a successful amateur, getting signed right out of the pros, right out of the amateurs into pros, because when you have a promoter behind you, you have money behind you. You have money behind you. You have money
They'll put
to
you in good
be
matchups,
on
put you in
the
the
A
best
side.
positions.
Yeah, like most people got to earn that. That's why a lot of people, like me, myself, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, they start off in Mexico because
Yeah.
it's cheaper, get an easier opponent, and your first time fighting without a headgear, without a shirt, and 8-ounce gloves, like you just want to get your feet wet.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to dive in there against a world champion. You know, so that and because it is a different experience. You know, for my first pro fight and TJ, I remember people asked me, like, were you nervous? Like, what were you thinking? And the number one thought that was in my head was, man, these gloves look way bigger on TV. You know, like that's the number one thing I was thinking. Like, damn, these 8-ounce gloves are small. You know, they don't look that small on TV. But so yeah, just stack as many fights as you can, and if possible, try to get signed right at amateur. But if not, recognize that it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
that pros is a different ball game. So
When you started figuring out that you're gonna turn pro, what was your thought?
honestly, it's a trip because all throughout my career, it was never I'm gonna be a pro one day. You know,
You're just like, I'll do some fights as an
yeah,
amateur.
yeah. You just don't get me wrong. You dream like, man, what if I turn pro? What if this happened? What if that happened? And little did I know I was actually gonna do it. But I remember I turned 18 and I was like, I might as well get paid for this now. You know, like I'm gonna stay amateur, but might as well see what happens. You know, and then I remember I had got burnt out after my first pro fight. My first pro fight, which ended up happening a lot, getting burnt out. But after my first pro fight, I took like a long hiatus from the sport, maybe like damn near a year, like 10 months. I took off, and I didn't plan on like coming back. I was just so burnt out. But that honestly was because I was burnt out from the sport. Like, just did it for so long.
Yeah, but 10 years, you're doing it for about 10 years already.
Yeah, without really a break, you know. So I was just done with it, and I really didn't plan on coming back. But I tell people to this day, like that little year I had off, that was the best year of my life. So it was just it was cool, you know. So but you know, I came back with a new fire, new fuel, new motivation, and then got back on track, got a little management, got out of that, and man, just so many ups and downs. Like I had a fallout with like 2 different managers and stuff like that. And that's what I'm saying, like the business side of it. You know, there's just such an ugly side of it that people don't see, and I got to learn real quick how ugly it could be. But
I've always tell people that it's actually very ugly and politicked out. It's very politicked.
yeah,
They just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I've never even been nowhere near it, and I can tell from it when I see these guys talk about it.
Yeah, and I didn't honestly like dealing with my first couple managers. Like, you see it, but eventually I got good management when I got signed to Rick and Rick Meridian and Gabriel Flores Sr. They co-signed me after I beat Rolando in the bubble, and I got to like get word. And the good thing is they're hella good. You know, they're good at management. So like, especially Rick. You know, Rick he has Virgil Ortiz, Jose Ramirez. You know, like some of the biggest fighters in the sport. You know, and he's managed some of the biggest fighters in the sport, especially Central Valley. But Rick, he's a dog. You know, like he is a dog. Like he gets you paid. He takes care of you, and that's a manager's job. You know, like to take care of you and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, everybody in this sport is trying to get their money. You know, and you have to realize that like you can't mix business with pleasure. You know, so we just need to understand that when you sign with somebody, recognize you're not signing a friendship deal. You're signing a management deal. You know,
they got to make their money off you.
Exactly. You know, so it's not necessarily that you want the manager that's gonna, they're money hungry, but they're gonna get you money on their way to money. You know, so that's what you want, and Rick's good at that.
When you look back at your pro career, what is the noticeable things you remember, and you could change if you could?
Damn, bro, man. I think now that I look back, from my point of view, 26, you know, and I turned pro when I was 18, and even Daniel says it now to this day, like if we could do certain things, and he'll tell me, man, if I knew what I knew now, training you guys and stuff like that, like, and we mess around and say I was the test dummy. You know, we were the test dummies and stuff like that. And I'm fine with it because I see now it's a trip because I see now how Daniel does certain things with his amateurs, with his son. And I think he learned that because he learned what not to do with me, you know?
That's how
yeah,
it is.
exactly.
Unfortunately,
The
that's how
trial
it
and
goes.
error
Yep.
of me. And it made me grateful though, you know, like that he learned, you know, he
Yep.
wasn't like, oh, you know, like I'm not gonna do that or this, and that he learned. And same goes with me, you know. I look back and I'm like, damn, if I would have did this wrong, if I would have did that wrong, if I would, especially last year training in Riverside, I was like, man, what if this, what if that? Like, are you just, man, being around some of those people, being in that environment, like, man, I honestly like, it would be foolish of me not to think, what if I started out here, you know? And I had the opportunity, but in all honesty, like if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't, you know, just because I started it with Daniel, bro, and I'm glad that through every fight he was with me, you know, like we were sitting there like getting extra hotel rooms for the promoters just for our families, you know, like stuff that we know that they could afford, so we just put it in the contract, you know, stuff like that, you know. So and that's probably the ghetto in us, but I mean, they got money, you know. Top Rank got money, Golden Boy got money, so we weren't being stingy and stuff like that. And my management told me too, like, hey, fool, like if you need this, write it in the contract, you know. If you need $300 per diem, put $600, you know, for food, you know, like
because that's really nothing to them.
Exactly. So we started getting up. We started getting greedy. We were like 600, 700. I need $1,000 to eat.
That ain't nothing to them.
Yeah, bro. So asking for extra rooms and stuff. So it was, and they never questioned us. They just gave us whatever we needed. Man, I was getting my family hotel rooms and stuff like that. You know, I remember at the time I had a best friend who was with me like almost all my fights. I was getting this dude a hotel room, you know, like just because he was with me like that, you know. And but yeah.
How was the fight on ESPN? Is there a difference fighting on ESPN in the zone?
Yeah. Just I mean, promoters. That's the biggest difference. I would say I like the zone and Golden Boy the way they do things because they do those weigh-ins early and then they do like the fake one later, for the radio. But that was the
so they do like UFC.
Yeah. So Golden Boy does it.
I never really see boxing talk about that or show that to do that.
Yeah,
I hear they do. Yeah, they never show it.
Yeah, they try to keep it on the low, but I remember they had weighed us in at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and then they did a fake weigh-in later. Which is dope, you know. Like fighters are trying to weigh in and eat, you know, like and get
gives you more time to hydrate.
Exactly, you know. So that right there I like more. But I'll be real, bro. Like just most of my fights were ESPN Top Rank, like. Top Rank is like it's just dope, you know, the whole ESPN, you know, and I think it's because, you know, so Golden Boy and Matchroom have to deal with the zone, and then Al Heyman, PBC, they have to deal with Prime now, Prime Video.
Back then, Showtime.
Yeah, exactly. So back then it was Showtime. So they all have their networks, and so Top Rank's ESPN, and whether people want to admit it or not, ESPN is more popular than the zone and
than all of them.
Yeah, because it's
especially in America, and especially in America.
Because it's worldwide sports. So I really liked fighting Top Rank, and they took care, and they weren't cheap. You know, they paid well, and half of that has to do with my management. And even when but it sucked fighting in the bubble. Like the first fight that I got signed to, like that sucked. But that was just because it was the bubble. You know, like we had horrible food, couldn't go nowhere. I remember we were trying to pay the security guard to leave that floor and go get us food and bring it back and stuff like that. And he said he was down too, but he never showed up. But anyways, I think, you know, Top Rank ESPN, just the whole atmosphere, it's surreal, you know. And I'll never forget, like, when I fought at the Save Mart Center, I fought Hector Tanahara, who's my boy. Shout out Tanahara, that's my dog right there. I was training with him in Riverside. And anyways, me and him, we had a hell of a fight in Fresno at the Save Mart Center. Ended up being a draw, but that whole experience was just a trip, bro, because for me, Bakersfield, Fresno's like home, you know, like
it's not that hard, man.
Exactly, yeah. And most of my amateur fights were there, you know, like because they have a lot of fights there, a lot of gyms there, a lot of Bakersfield showed up there. And I post this video often about there's like a video of me, they're like announcing my name, and it says like out of Bakersfield, California, Miguel, Caveman. And they announce my name, and then you hear the crowd get all loud, and then you see Stitch in the background like clap, kind of smiling, like dang, they got loud for him. And I kind of smirked a smile too, and then Daniel's right there kind of smiling, and like I watched the video later, like, and it was just like, God, like, talk about surreal, man. God is so good, bro. Like, I remember being a kid in the shower picturing that moment, you know, like fighting out of Bakersfield, California, that moment right there.
That's what we all dream of right there.
Exactly. And then to witness it, it was just like, man, tell me God ain't good. Like that moment alone. That moment alone was just like, God, you're too good. But he did more after
Yeah.
that, you know. But that moment alone was just worth a million words, you know.